John Bolton's home was, I guess, raided by the FBI. FBI showed up at his house, and lo and behold, there's all this media there, and George Conway was there taking photos. I don't know how everyone figured it out, but in Bethesda, Maryland, his home and office was raided. Multiple agents entering the residence of John Bolton. The court authorized the search of Bolton's residence as part of a national security investigation in search of classified records. So important to note that this is law and order playing out. No one is above the law, as FBI Director Kash Patel posted to X, the Everything app. Bolton served for 17 months as Trump's the national security advisor. Those of you who have been with me for a long time know that Bolton was a weekly guest on Breitbart News Daily with me when I hosted, and I think is truly a brilliant person, and Trump broke his brain. He was basically tasked with Trump's Venezuela policy when he got to national security advisor. And Bolton has had a lot of terrific ideas over the years. He's a very genius IQ type individual and is a expert communicator. But he was really terrible in that national security advisor role. His main task, it looked like, was Venezuela, and it was sort of a joke. I don't think they really made a dent into the regime in Venezuela. I don't think they were very effective dealing with Maduro and his regime. And then they installed this guy, Juan Guaido, as the legitimate president of Venezuela, but no one recognized Juan Guaido. And they even had Juan Guaido come to the State of the Union. And it was hugely embarrassing. And then eventually Bolton got the boot. But, you know, Trump and I'm guessing they didn't get along well. I think I hadn't spoken with Trump directly about it, but I had spoken with people who had known Trump's opinion of Bolton before he got that job. And Trump actually wasn't a huge fan of I think he thought he was too much of a neocon, and he didn't like that he was a short guy with a funny mustache. I think that bothered Trump. And Trump cares about this stuff. And the goofy mustache, the cookie duster, as it is known, was not something that Trump liked very much. So he gets the job probably because he really is a super smart person and ambitious, obviously. Gets in there, does a bad job, and leaves, and he writes a book called The Room Where It Happened, where it's all just spilling details of stuff that took place, which was, I think, very uncouth. And he probably made millions of dollars doing it, which is very tempting. That's a lot of money to just write stuff that happened to you. And I've never had that issue myself, but it is, you see how this stuff comes to be. But it really was not a classy thing to do by Ambassador Bolton, essentially trying to trash the president of the United States, whom he worked for. I think it does undermine the institution of the presidency in general to do such a thing. So he did, he made a lot of money doing it. And then immediately questions were asked whether or not this was a legitimate thing that he was able to do this, because of course it was based off of access to confidential information, or else he would not have been able to do any of this. So just the background, hawkish guy, backed Trump in 2016, which was probably helpful to him. And then he was appointed after a while. There's discussion of him coming in earlier, but then he ended up getting the job later in the administration. And then he crashed out, as again, for the aforementioned, I think, Venezuela scenario and maybe some others, where the policy wasn't going as well as possible. So he writes this book, and then the Democrats actually tried to subpoena him during the impeachment, by the way, after finding out that the book was being written, because I don't think they understood it was going to be negative on Trump. And even though Bolton was a guy who was saying Trump should be a one-term president, he should be more of a transitional guy. And so the DOJ was considering using charges over use of classified material. And so the Trump White House tried to block the book from coming out. The book ends up coming out, and the judge allowed for it, saying that this was not uncouth. And this happens when you have a national security job. You got to get stuff cleared by judges if you want to end up writing about it. But the judge did say that Bolton likely compromised national security, which was an interesting detail at the time. He likely compromised national security when he put the book out. And so him writing this stuff, it may have been legal, he may have been allowed to do it, but it was not, it was undermining of the presidency and of the country. And so Biden's Department of Justice closed the inquiry in 2021. So obviously this is a lawfare situation, and this connects very deeply to the stuff that I worked on in Breaking the Law, to understand how the legal superstructure is in place to help Democrats, to make it life easier for Democrats. So Biden DOJ closes it 2021, and then the same DOJ backs stuff like the bogus prosecution of Trump in Manhattan, which we have discussed numerous times, and the classified documents case in Florida, as well as J6 related cases that ended up in Tanya Chutkin's court. So the DOJ has been behind a lot of stuff that was negative on Trump, but let Bolton slide on this thing in the end, which is clearly part of why I discussed the superstructure. Is there is, whether it be coordinated literally or coordinated ahead of time, and then just this is how things play out. That's just the nature of lawfare in this moment. So since Trump has been back in office, the Boltons defended Trump on certain things like the suckers and losers hoax, but overall, he's been in the media attacking Trump and Trump's foreign policy accomplishments. He's been minimizing them because Trump wants the Nobel Prize, and that's how Bolton is framing it. And I just don't know why that's relevant. I think Joel has talked about it, at least with us on Breitbart Confidential, if not on this show, Joel Pollack for us at Breitbart. But he has pointed out in the past, which is really important, that's the point of the Nobel Prize, is to incentivize people to do good stuff, whether it be innovation in science or things like that, or to achieve peace for the world. One of the reasons to do this stuff is because you might get a reward in the end. So this is the key point. I asked Joel to help me do a little digging here, and he found this for me, which was really great. So the court refusing the block publication of Bolton's memoir. But here's the money quote. Upon reviewing the classified materials, as well as the declarations filed on the public docket, the court is persuaded that defendant Bolton likely jeopardized national security by disclosing classified information in violation of his non-disclosure agreement obligations. So he jeopardized national security. So that's just a remarkable thing. So even though you're allowed to publish it, but really you shouldn't. And he got paid a lot of money. Hand up, Simon & Schuster, my publisher as well. Not my same imprint, though. Not the conservative imprint that I'm on. But a $2 million advance was the reported advance. So there's a very good chance he's guilty here. That's enough of a kernel to look into it to see if he actually did anything improper. So again, with Biden dropping the prosecution while allowing for Trump prosecutions, that's the exact type of lawfare that I'm trying to draw the map of how this stuff gets created and why breaking the law is so important. And again, I know this is a sales pitch, sounds like a sales pitch. It is a sales pitch, fine. But the point is that I've given this a lot of deep thought. And if we allow for the lawfare superstructure to remain intact, then this is exactly what's going to take place, is that people are going to feel like, well, the judge is saying that I probably shouldn't put this out, but I'm going to put it out anyway because Trump's the bad guy, and that's how we roll. And that really is not how we should roll. We should have something that is greater than partisanship in this country. And Bolton, so blinded by his Trump hatred and the fact that he can make money dine out off of his Trump hatred, is clearly what propels him to do stuff like this. So here is the money quote here that I think is really important. I'll play some clips of President Trump and some of the left-wing hand-wringing about this, which was automatic online that we saw, is that right after this is important here. Right after the Mar-a-Lago raid, John Bolton was on TV talking about the Mar-a-Lago raid and whether or not it was legitimate, and let's hear what he had to say.
And I think it's important that everybody take a deep breath here. This is a very serious matter. And it would be better if we could let the legal process play out. I know that may be frustrating to some people, but the seriousness of it itself dictates that we try and proceed in the most orderly way we can.
Okay, you guys got that? That is all you need to know about John Bolton. Everybody ought to just calm down, whether you're pro-Trump or anti-Trump. Let the process work its way through. It's all you need to know. That's all there is. So we're going to see the process work its way through. J.D. Vance was already asked about this, and he suggested that there could be some broad concerns. Did an interview with Christian Welker. I caught this just right before I started to record the podcast today, so I don't have the audio, but I'll read you the transcript. Again, I'll let the FBI speak to that when asked about what's the root of it. Classified documents are certainly part of it, but I think there's a broad concern about Ambassador Bolton. They're going to look into it. And like I said, if there's no crime here, we're not going to prosecute it. If there is a crime, of course, Ambassador Bolton will get his day in court. That's how it should be. But again, our focus here is on, did he break the law? Did he commit crimes against the American people? And if so, then he deserves to be prosecuted. And this is all fine. It's all fair game. They moved the goalposts so bad on President Trump, and we all warned you guys of this stuff. Like all of us in conservative media space that said, if you want to have a standard where you're guilty until proven innocent, then you have to be in a position where you make sure that you keep power for the rest of eternity, because of course we're going to turn the tables on you. And that's exactly what's happening here.